Hey, everybody. All right. I'm really hoping, like really, really hoping that we have finally sorted out the glitches. My understanding, my team has been amazing and triaging all this stuff for like the last couple of days. I'm really hopeful that we're in a place right now where everybody can actually see us live on Patreon. That is my hope. And we will kind of keep going from here. And hopefully all of this will be in very good shape. So fingers crossed that we are live streaming on Patreon as we speak. I'm going to just check out what's happening over there so that I can kind of try to figure it out myself. But we're doing our absolute best right now to kind of get you guys everything that you need. And I also just want to thank all of you who have been so patient with us while all of this has been going on, trying to get all this stuff kind of sorted through our migration. It hasn't been particularly easy, but we're really super glad that you guys have all been so patient with us, and also that the kind of recorded broadcast has become super easy for you guys to handle. So, my hope is that we're in good shape here from all perspectives. So, I am going to just keep broadcasting while we've got people kind of logging in here. And hopefully everything is running according to plan. So let me just tell you a couple quick things while we're waiting for people to happen here. Oh, it's working. Hooray. Hi, Trish. That's fantastic. All right. This is really good. All right. So I got to tell you, like, you don't even want to know what Megan and Brittany and I have had to do over the last 24 hours to try to get this all happening in the way that it should. All right. Yay. Hooray. Like, maybe we finally nailed it down. Thank you all so much again for your patience. All right. So a couple quick things I just want to mention really quick. We have a big announcement coming, possibly by the end of today, concerning something that we want to do for all of you who are feeling like really, really badly burnt out. And I will just let you all know that I've been having some really interesting conversations over the last couple of days with a variety of activists, commentators, lawyers, spiritual advisors, even like meditation teachers and the like, about where we all are right now. Because honestly, I know I have personally felt more burnt out in the last 2 weeks than I felt in my entire life. And I know that a lot of you have been communicating the same thing. It's one of the reasons why this week I've been talking so much about burnout and how everyone is feeling and the kind of collective trauma that we're all experiencing and the need for all of us to kind of like figure out how we're going to keep going. One of the things that I found out this morning, I had a conversation with an expert on authoritarianism who I think you would all probably recognize, but she hasn't given me permission to actually say her name, so I won't do that. But, just about what happens at a certain point in authoritarian regimes when things start to get, and they have been for quite some time, but really bad. And the added component of where we find ourselves right now with so much social media indoctrination and the fact that we are all like witnessing violence and trauma and xenophobia and racism and, fascism, fundamentally, like fascist violence on a daily basis right now through social media. And the idea that our brains are really not kind of designed to process the degree of what we're witnessing right now. And it is making a number of us kind of like want to shut down, and maybe even a lot of us supposed to shut down, from the perspective of wanting to just quit, right? And find a way to find joy in other areas of our lives. And the issue really here is that, apparently, if we do not actually do what needs to be done from here. I just got a message from my team in my upper right-hand corner that said, OMG, it seems to be working. So I guess we're in good shape. One of the things that we need to be mindful of here is that if we, this thing of wanting to withdraw because it's all so painful and because it is all traumatic, can actually go on for decades in authoritarian regimes. There's actually like evidence of this, of like the general population just like checking out. And that's not something that we want to have here. It is not something that we want to allow to happen here, right? I think that makes sense to all of us. But that doesn't mean that the trauma and the desire to run or withdraw or the sense of overwhelm or hurt. I mean, I've really been in this place of realizing that it means that all of it that's actually real, right? That's actually the experience that we're all having right now. For me personally, I've realized in the last few days, really honestly, by the way, I will just mention this, since we moved over to Patreon, for whatever reason, that has generated like a little bit more ease for me. in terms of like the constant deluge of exposure that being on Facebook was having in my own daily life, right? I don't have to be over on Facebook right now looking at what everybody is doing. And I will tell you that I have been very aware of the way in which my central nervous system has just like slightly shifted by doing that change. We're in any event, this is leading to the fact that we have designed something like amazing with a lot of input from a lot of people at this point that's going to be designed to give all of us a little bit of a break while simultaneously allowing us to continue. So from where we sit right now, I just want to let you all know that there's like a very big announcement coming. I think you're all really going to like it. And I'm designing it so that all of us can find ways to like find respite and relief and maybe some joy and maybe some return to calm while still being able to continue fighting back. So just stay tuned for that. That announcement is coming very soon, and we're like stoked about that. All right, so that's coming very soon. All right, let's just talk about a couple of things that have happened in the last 24 hours. There's a lot of details about Epstein's suicide that are coming through right now. Yo, Philly, hey, it's nice to see some comments coming through from you guys. Now that we seem to be finally working, because I love the interaction. All right, Philly's like kind of my hometown, Bucks County. All right, anyway, the Epstein thing. I want to say a couple things about this because I know, okay, like kind of based on this death, that there is a lot of speculation out there about what has happened. There was some news yesterday that like Epstein's death was announced on 4chan 38 minutes before it became public. That there's Barr now has all this evidence around some things, kind of concerning Epstein's suicide. I just want to say a couple of quick things about this, okay? I think it is incredibly important that we do not get distracted right now by the speculation, honestly, like very conspiracy theory oriented thoughts about how Epstein died. I will tell you that I share the same concerns about what was going on with the guards, whether or not they were sleeping, whether or not they were actually trained correctional officers, whether or not they did their check-ins every 30 minutes as they were supposed to. There were reports out of the New York Times yesterday, late last night, that the guards may have slept for 3 hours without checking on Epstein. We don't know what the reason is for that, right? But let me just say this. The thing I want you all to remember here is that Epstein is dead, right? Like the story of his death may not be something that we know for quite some time. But the fact of the matter is, I mean, I know this is going to sound a little strange to just say this. He's dead, right? Like, meanwhile, there's ongoing rollbacks of rights happening every single day right now in this administration. And the more that we're focused on whether or not, there's some conspiracy that he was murdered or that, he did have evidence on powerful people. We know that. One of you asked me a question of did the FBI raid his island to seize all the evidence that he had of powerful people engaged in molesting teenage girls? I'm just going to say this, okay? What it would take for the entire FBI to be engaged in that, for hundreds of officers that descended on that island to be engaged in that, is something that I don't actually think our government is capable of at this moment in time, just simply because they're so freaking incompetent. But I feel like it is really, really, really important that we walk a middle ground here, okay? That we recognize that there are some serious questions about Epstein's death, about whether or not he was checked on, about what the corrections officers were doing, about how he died, right? Those are legitimate questions. The idea that the FBI is engaged in some massive conspiracy to cover up what Epstein knew, I find very hard to accept. And I will also just add the degree of attention that is currently being focused on that versus, for instance, the administration announced a policy yesterday that that government employers could fire people for being LGBTQ, pregnant, any other religious objection. That's getting almost no press, right? And, Epstein's death is, while there's a lot to consider, right? There's a lot to consider about this. It is incredibly important that we also stay focused on the actual harm that is being perpetrated right now against actual human beings, right? As opposed to Epstein committing suicide or whatever else happened, which at some point we will know the story for. It may not be tomorrow, it may not be next year, but at some point the truth will out, because it always does. So this is my way of saying to all of you that while focusing on Epstein is interesting, right? And I will add that it's also kind of salacious, which is one of the things that the administration is counting on, that there's going to be other powerful men wrapped up in raping teenage girls. And let's not buy into that. Okay. Like, this is the other thing I want to say. Like, let's not buy into the tabloid culture of what it means to be like, ooh, who else are we going to find out who raped a teenage girl? Right. As opposed to, and I'm not saying not burn it all down. You all know my perspective on this, right? Like, anybody who did that should go to jail. But the Epstein case, including by the president, right? Because he's retweeting conspiracy theories, is being used right now to distract in very serious ways from other things that are happening minute by minute on the ground in this administration. So pay a little bit of attention to what is happening here right now on, in relation to Epstein, because it's relevant, right? I'm not going to say it's not relevant, but please don't take your attention off of the real damage that is being perpetrated right now, right? Like, minute by minute, the news stories that nobody is getting, particular, information about from that standpoint. All right. So, that's my comment on Epstein right now. And I think we're going to learn more. Like, I know Bill Barr is involved. I know he can't be trusted as far as anyone could possibly throw him even an inch, right? I will also just add, however, that Tish James is on this. I do think that the truth will come out, and I think our best strategy for this is to be patient and wait to see what develops. All right. Stacey Abrams was on Rachel Maddow last night. You all know I'm like a massive fan of Stacey. She should have been the governor of Atlanta, and I had lots of friends who, from the perspective of where we found ourselves in the 2018 election, are outraged by the fact that the election was stolen from her. She announced that she is not running for president. She is, however, engaged and has been, honestly, since the 2018 election, in efforts to protect voting rights and voter security. I just want to do a big shout out that we should all be supporting her as much as possible. Make donations to her PAC. She is absolutely one to watch. I would be thrilled to have her as a vice presidential candidate. I would be thrilled to have her in the next administration as someone who is a designated, maybe even cabinet level position, because, they invent cabinet level positions all the time when we need them. A new cabinet level position on voter security and voting rights. She is amazing. And, I think that, from the standpoint of where we all are, we absolutely have to watch her. She's just, she is a change agent par excellence. And I want to see her do all the good she can do in the world in all the right ways. So big shout out to Stacey today, and please go support her PAC. Okay. We had a couple questions about the NRA. The NRA kind of continues to implode. I just want to let you all know this. There's continuing revelations that the NRA used donor funds to the NRA to buy property for Wayne LaPierre. Every day, it's like there's a new revelation of their corruption. Again, I want to just remind you all, none of this should surprise anyone, but I will say that the kind of infighting inside the NRA, the current development of what is happening with the NRA from the standpoint of its own devolution is a really good thing from where we sit, because the less influence that the NRA has over politics and politicians, the more likely it is that we're actually going to get real gun control reform in this country. And I will remind you all that, top of the pile for some of those donations are people like Mitch McConnell. So we, again, that's something to watch from standpoint of let's let them all eat themselves. Let's let the whole thing fall apart, because going forward, it's going to mean much better things for the country. All right. Trump gave a speech yesterday. And I just want to say one thing about this particular aspect of, of where we are. I am trying very hard now to not watch the president on video ever. One of the other things that relates to what I was saying at the beginning of the video today is that I am very mindful right now of the ways in which physical damage is being done to my body through stress. And so for that reason, I am absolutely not trying to watch him on video ever. I did, however, read Daniel Dale. You all know I'm a huge fan of Daniel Dale, who's the truth teller, who's now been hired by CNN, who watches everything that the president does so that we don't have to. And then in real time puts out all the ways in which the president is lying. So I did read Daniel Dale's live stream after the fact yesterday of the president's speech. And I just want to make one observation here from the standpoint of where we are. Okay. The president, and I think this goes without saying, but I've got to put it in the stark terms that it's in right now. The president is not sane. And I mean that from the place of like not even having a grounding in reality. This was observed, by the way, on Twitter yesterday by quite a number of commentators, that we are seeing a rapid dissension in the president's mental state right now that should scare the living shit out of everyone. Yesterday, during this speech, for instance, and everyone from like George Conway to Stephanie Ruhle was calling this out. The president at one point in the middle of the speech pointed at the press pool in the back of the place where he was giving the speech and said, look at this. There's so much media here for an 11 a.m. speech. The speech was at 2:40 in the afternoon. So it's not even, the daily barrage of lies coming out of his mouth. It's actually that he doesn't know where he is. He doesn't know what time it is. He doesn't have a grounding in reality, right? And, for however much I despise Scaramucci, as we all do, I think it's just a waste of airspace to put him on. And he's been doing yet another press tour over the last couple of days. I will say this. He did tweet last night that he had heard from 3 cabinet officials who think that the president at this moment has absolutely lost his mind. We already know, we talked about this a little bit yesterday, that one of the things that happened during the 2018 election was that people like Kirstjen Nielsen, who was then the head of the DHS, went off and engaged in election protection protocols without the president's knowledge. So I am not surprised, frankly, by Scaramucci's comment that there are cabinet members who think the president has lost his mind, like is no longer compos mentis. To me, one of the things that we need to think about here is what that means going forward. And I'll add Jason Overstreet, who I follow, who I adore, who I'm reading his books right now. He's an amazing author. He made a comment yesterday about the fact that it's hard to process that it's going to get worse. I've been saying this, as you all know, for like almost 3 years now, that it's going to get worse before it gets better. The thing that I'm particularly concerned about right now is that it's not just, the fascism itself is bad enough, right? Kids in cages is bad enough. Torturing people in concentration camps is bad enough. Having a president who cannot tell reality from fiction, who is so mentally decompensated that he can't tell what time it is or where he is or what he's talking about, that's a profound national security concern. And I mean that even from the standpoint of him going off and doing something like literally insane that could start a war or, result in the end of humanity. So from this perspective, this is something that I feel like we all, again, I'm going to make a big point about this. We need to protect ourselves from this right now because it is profoundly toxic. Okay. But I also think we all have to face the reality that we're dealing with someone in the White House. And this is not just like, the random trolley comments that we've all been known to make that the president is a lunatic, right? And I have to be really careful here because this is the other thing I want to say about this. Please do not take any of this as an assumption that people who are really struggling with mental illness are in the same boat as the president. They're not. We're talking about somebody right now who honestly is showing profound signs of dementia and has a family history of it. From where we sit, we need to be aware that, and this has to be a part of your demands when you are calling Congress, that we are dealing with a president who has no grounding in reality right now and has immense power and control over the entirety of the U.S. government, pretty much. So we absolutely have to be, thoughtful and mindful about that. And, by the way, we all know at this point, I think that the 25th Amendment is not a likely invocation for us to face right now, unless there is some, limit at this point that Pence might hit that would cause him to invoke it. And I honestly don't see that happening because, Pence is just the ultimate sycophant. So in any event, I just want to remind you all, the crazy things that are happening right now, the president's decompensation, his lack of grounding in reality is real. And it's yet another reason to call and demand impeachment be propelled forward as fast as possible. Speaking of which, last comment for today. One of you asked me about a timetable for impeachment. Okay, there is no given timetable for impeachment. We know we're in an official impeachment proceeding right now. Nadler has announced it twice. One of the things that I would just like to mention here as we continue to go through this is this. We need need to continue to put pressure on them to move forward quickly. Even if the proceeding is underway, our voices make a difference in terms of the rapidity at which they respond. You all know that I was really not pleased at the length of time that it took, for instance, for Nadler to go into court to try to compel subpoenas. It was way too long. He should have been in court the minute somebody didn't show up. I have also been very vocal about the fact that I'm not happy with how long it has taken Pelosi to get to a point of even being on the verge of being able to speak the word impeachment in real time. So we need to continue making our voices heard. You all know we're still in the August recess. Showing up at your congressperson's office is really important, but there is no given timetable for impeachment. It could go on for another month. It could go on for 6 months. It could go on for a year. And, the speed with which it progresses does have a direct relationship to how much we use our voices for change. So please, let's continue to do what we need to do. Continue to activate, continue to move forward, continue to propel forward on all that we're doing. All right. And I want to send you all just a lot of love today. Like I said, we're going to have a very big announcement. I just got a notice from my team that the big announcement is now live on our website. So just know this, I will post something in Patreon. By the way, for all our Patreon subscribers, you are getting a special little doodad related to this announcement that we're going to make today. So if you're on Patreon, head on over there very soon, and we will let you all know what your little bonus is, because we love you all so much. And I will make sure, no, it doesn't have anything to do with puppies, Lorraine, but thank you for asking. But puppies can be a part of it. That's the really good thing. And y'all will figure that out if you choose to join us. All right. Anyway, I want to send you all much love. Head on over to Patreon, and I will make an announcement over there very shortly, because we promised we would let our Patreon subscribers know about this first. And I will be, walking y'all through that very shortly on other social media platforms as well. All right. Much love. Thanks for being here. I'm so glad we finally seem to have sorted this out for a live stream on Patreon. So grateful to all of you. Much love. And I will talk to all of you tomorrow. All right. Take care, everyone. Bye.